Alrighty, so today we're looking at lesson 7, buying a used vehicle. And this is where we get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of actually buying a vehicle, because it's more complicated than just buying like a lamp from a store. Because a lamp, you buy the lamp, you pay the tax, and you leave with it, and that's it. Cars are a little bit more difficult because there's this licensing and this insurance issue you have to go through. So buying a car is a little bit more tricky than buying just a regular thing from the store. All right, let's see what this says. So since a new vehicle depreciates so much in the first year, many people prefer to buy a 1 or 2-year-old vehicle, or maybe you don't have lots of cash, so you buy a 5-year-old vehicle or a 10-year-old vehicle. You do what you gotta do, right? But a used vehicle is difficult to find, like a good one, because you don't want to buy a lemon. I don't know if you've ever heard of a lemon before, but a lemon is something that just everything goes wrong with it. Like you buy a car and right away the steering goes and the brakes are bad and then the engine breaks down. Sometimes they call a lemon just something that everything breaks on. So sometimes you got to do your research before you buy something, especially like a car, because it's pretty expensive, right? Okay, here are some things that you need to know, but will also be on a formula sheet for you. So it's good to have an idea in your head, but then be able to use what's given to you. So when you buy a used vehicle from a dealership, like Murray Chevrolet, or there's really big dealerships where there's a million cars on the lot, you have to pay PST and GST. Now here's the chart that's going to be on your formula sheet. Buying new, you pay PST and GST. Buying used from a dealership, like we just mentioned, PST and GST. So you have to pay both taxes, just like you would on a new car. When you buy privately, you only pay PST. So privately means like some guy off Kijiji or Auto Trader or whatever else. So when you buy privately, you have to save yourself some tax. You only have to pay PST. And it says that down here, right there. Buying used privately, only PST. There's no GST, but there's a bit of a catch. So the PST is based on the book value of the vehicle. So for example, my dad had this really, really old truck. It was like a beast of a truck. And eventually he didn't want to drive it anymore. He wanted to get a new truck, but it really wasn't worth a whole lot. So he gifted it to a friend of a family. And what he did there, just to make everything kind of easy to figure out, is he sold it to our friends for $1. The thing is, though, is that the government knows that truck is worth more than $1, and they want to get their slice of the pie. They want to get their taxes out of you anyway. So what they do is they say, okay, how much is this truck worth? How much do we think it's worth? We call that the book value. What's it basically worth? And if you sell the car or you buy the car for less than it's worth, they still charge you the tax on what they think it's worth. All right, so I'll try and say that again in a minute, but basically is that no matter how much you purchase the car for, you're still going to have to pay tax on generally what it's worth. Even if you get a really good deal, you still have to pay tax on that, more than just the $1 worth. I'll try that again in a minute. Let's see if it makes more sense. A lien. A lien is illegal. This is another good one that we need to be aware of. It's spelled kind of weird, not like your regular, like I leaned on the wall. A legal claim that someone or something has on the property of another person until a debt has been paid back. What that means is, let's say I go and buy a brand new car, but I don't have all that money in cash. Like I don't have the $30,000 I need in cash. So I go to my bank and I get a loan for it. And the bank knows that this is a loan for the car. So every month I pay some money towards the loan. But a couple of years down the line, I'm like, you know what, I really don't love this car. Maybe I got a baby on the way. I need a van now. I need something different. While I have the loan for the car, there is a lien on the car that says I can't sell the car until I've paid off the loan. Or if I really want to sell it, I have to tell the bank, hey, I'm going to sell this. Once I get money for it, I will pay the loan off to you. Like right away, I'll pay the loan off once that's done. What's important here is that when you buy a used car, you know if there's liens on it or not. Because if someone stops paying the loan or they don't pay it off entirely, The bank will say, hey, you're not paying the loan. What's going on here? And if they keep not paying back the loan, the bank might come and try to take the car away. Even though it's kind of yours now, you don't really want to be in that situation at all. You'd rather know, okay, there's a lien on this car. These people are telling me that they're going to pay it back, and you tie up their loose ends before you purchase the car. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that that you're not going to be caught up in their business, that they take care of this loan before they give you the keys to the car. Okay, so it's a totally fine thing to have a lien on a car or a lien on a house or something like that. It just means that the bank has kind of a vested interest in the car. They would like you to pay back the car, the value of the car. They'd like to pay back the loan. And that as a person buying a car, you don't want to be involved in someone else's business. You want them to finish it up before you take over the car. Just so that way the bank never tries to say, hey, that's actually our car. You know what I mean? You don't want to be in on that situation. Okay, back to book value for a minute. So let's put in a definition here. A book value is an estimated value of your used car, because, you know, a brand new car, the book value is going to be whatever it sells at right now, so that's easy to tell. That did not help. So it's an estimated value of your used car based on reasonable use and reasonable care. So, you know, you're gonna use that car. If it's a 10-year-old car, you're not expecting it to be in perfect condition. It's not going to be. There's going to be tiny little stains where you dropped your juice or your coffee or whatever. There's going to be, you know, tiny little imperfections here and there. You've obviously used the car, so maybe, you know, maybe it just doesn't run like a brand new car anymore. But if there's something ever wrong with it, you've gotten it fixed. And there's no like giant holes in the car. There's no giant problems with the engine. You've gotten everything fixed that you can, but it's, you know, it's not in perfect condition anymore. So what is the value of the car, of this reasonably cared for car? That's the book value. Now, what I was trying to explain about the book value here is that when you're buying privately, you do have to pay PST, but it depends on which one's bigger. What you actually purchased the car for, or how much it's reasonably, you know, worth. So typically, these two values are around the same amount. Once in a while, maybe you got a really, really good deal because someone just wanted to get rid of the car really fast. Once in a while, the book value will be worth a little bit more. Or maybe you got a really, really good, or maybe you overpaid because you really wanted it. Maybe this will be a little bit more. So it just depends on which one's bigger. So let's make a little note here. You pay PST on the purchase price, like how much you're paying for it, or the book value. Whichever is greater. I know whichever is one word, by the way. Whichever is greater. Yeah, alrighty. So for example, well, let's put it over here. Example, you purchased it for $10,000, but MBI kind of figures that it's actually worth a little bit more than that. Book value, let's say the book value was like $12,000. You're not paying the book value. MBI is just saying your car is actually worth $12,000, so we want PST on $12,000 rather than PST on $10,000. So we're never adding in $12,000 to your costs. We're just using $12,000 to find out how much your PST is. So in this case, you pay PST on the book value. They just want more of your money is the real thing. You're not paying the $12,000, you're paying tax on the $12,000. So I know that's kind of a tricky thing. Alrighty. So purchase price might be bigger, book value might be bigger. You know, it doesn't truly matter one way or another, other than you're just going to pay tax on the bigger one. Alrighty, now let's flip the page. Let's go through some steps. Oh, I've got to sneeze. Let's see if that happens here. Here are some steps. These steps are really good to have on a study sheet, perhaps. And some of them don't really matter which one goes in which order, and some of them do. So, step 1, start with the cost of the vehicle. Yeah, you're going to have to pay for the cost of the vehicle. That's not crazy to think of. Okay, step 2. Sometimes you want to get a diagnostic test done. So maybe if you're buying it privately, you might say, hey, I'd like you to take this to I'd like to take it to my, you know, my garage or my mechanic and figure out, is there anything that needs to be done? Or maybe I have a buddy that can do this for me, and maybe I pay them a little bit. So if you go to a mechanic, you have to pay for the diagnostic test, and you have to pay taxes on that test. Just so that way you know that nothing major is wrong with the car. Like if it's something small like the brakes, you could, you know, pay for that, it's fine. Then you have to pay PST on the book value, or, we're going to add this in here, or the purchase price. We're going to put in brackets greater, whichever one's greater. Now, sometimes we don't add this in because for a while there it looked like the exam was not going to do this, add in this kind of whichever's greater part, but seems like they are, so we're going to keep teaching that. Now, you don't give the PST to the person you're buying the car off of, you actually give it to MPI. So it's kind of a weird time when you're buying a car because you can't drive the car until the car has insurance on it. So what usually happens, I've sold a couple of cars now on Kijiji because I found that I was getting more money off someone off Kijiji rather than at the dealership. So someone comes over, they take a look at the car, they go for a test drive with it. I usually make my husband go, and we do some things to make ourselves feel more safe, like getting their driver's license and stuff like that. So they take the car for a test drive, they see if they like it, and then they decide they want to buy the car. So they give you money in some way, hopefully a kind of more secure way. Like I would never take a personal check because I don't know if that check is going to bounce or not. Some things that work well are cashier's check because it's like a guaranteed check, or e-transfers work pretty good nowadays. They're pretty quick, or straight up cash works as well. So they'll give me some money, and then we have to fill out some forms together. So there's in your registration for your car, there is a little piece of paper that you sign to say that you're selling the car. And then you need to come up with a bill of sale. And there's a few things that you need to do to be able to sell your car. But if you Google MPI, and they'll give you a list of things you need to do. So you fill out all these forms together. And then whoever's buying your car needs to now go to an insurance place. So they have to drive something else, leave the car where it is, go drive, give them all these documents, and that's where they pay PST. So you pay PST to the MPI people. You fill out all the forms you need to do, and then you need to get insurance on that car before you can drive it. So then, they go through all the decisions with insurance, and they get a temporary plate or a temporary little piece of paper that acts as a license plate. And then they can come back, and then they can drive the car. So it's kind of like a two-man operation to go and buy a car. And when you're selling a car, you should definitely never be doing that on your own. It's definitely a better idea to be doing it with someone else. So you're not feeling like you're in a dangerous situation. And you want to do it with someone who knows how to sell a car, because it's a few steps. You know what I mean? Okay. Do you need to carry out a safety check on the vehicle? Safeties, I have $40 down here. I've seen it more like $60, but this is just kind of an estimate. And you have to pay GST on a safety. A safety, we've talked about this before, but let's talk about it again. A safety is a check that they do on the car where they check a few different things like airbags and brakes and seat belts. They don't check over to see if this is a good car or not. They just check to see if it passes certain safety requirements. So some brand new cars that are shipped over from like different countries, like from Asian countries, sometimes those cars don't have the same safety requirements as we do, so it wouldn't pass a safety. It's not because it's not a good car. It could be like the best car ever, but if it doesn't have the same safety requirements, it won't pass as safety. So usually the person selling the car gets a safety, but sometimes you can get it after the fact. You cannot get insurance until you have a safety. So that's just kind of another step to add into this whole thing. And then last one here, do you need to do a lien search? If you're buying it off some random, just to make sure that you can kind of trust them a little bit more, you might want to do a lien search. And it's $26, which includes tax. I don't know if it's gone up a little bit now since then, but that's just a good estimate. It's not a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's a good little way to make sure that you're not going to get caught up in someone else's financial issues. You know what I mean? All right. And then you add it all up and you find the total. So sometimes we won't have to do all 6 steps. Like maybe you're not doing a lien search, or maybe you, the safety is already done or something like that. So we don't always need to do all 6. It'll just depend on what we're given in the question. Okay, but you see why we're talking about these things, so that if you ever do buy a car privately, you have some idea of what you're kind of getting into, and some idea of the type of research you need to do before you go out and buy that car. All right, let's try this one. Gordy lives in Flin Flon, Manitoba, and that's not important other than it's just in Manitoba, so they have RPST and GST. He wants to buy a used car from a private owner who is asking $1,995 for the car. Okay, that's pretty cheap. Gordy needs to do a lien search, which will cost $26, which already has tax in it. Since he is not a mechanic, he decides to have a $30 diagnostic test done. That also needs some taxes. The mechanic tells him that the car needs some engine work that will cost $650. When he gets the car licensed, he has to pay PST on the book value of the car. The book value is $2,500. So he feels like he's getting a bit of a deal because he's buying it for less, but he also has to pay for some fixes. He will also have to take the car for a safety inspection. This will be an added $40 plus GST. How much will the car cost Gordy? So in total, to get this car in working condition, to get it insured and all that, how much is it going to cost? So let's go through this a little bit here. Step 1. Now you don't need to write down the steps, but it does help to keep it kind of organized. So step 1, cost. That was $1,995. And I'm just going to circle them so that way I know which ones to add up later. Step 2, that was diagnostic test. So diagnostic and repairs. So I had diagnostic test of $30 plus the $650. So I'm going to have to pay the mechanic $680 plus whatever taxes. So if I look up at the top there, I had to pay both taxes on these type of repairs. So 680 times, now taxes are 5% and 7%, so total 12%. And I'm going to multiply by 1.12, so that way I don't have to add the two things together. So 680 times 1.12. In total, I have to pay this mechanic $761.60. That includes $680 for the mechanic and some for taxes. Okay, circle that guy. I have to pay that. Step 3. PST on book value or purchase price, whichever one's higher. So this is my PST. My book value was $2,500. My purchase price was $1,995. Which one is bigger? That one's bigger. Ooh, I shouldn't have circled it. Oof. Let's not circle. Let's put a star next to it. Okay, I did a really ugly job whiting that out. I just don't want to circle it because I'm not actually paying $2,500. I'm just paying PST on that value. So I don't want to circle it. I am going to put a star next to it though. That's the one I'm paying PST on. But I'm not paying that $2,500. I'm just paying PST on it. So let's figure out PST on $2,500. PST is 0.5 or just 5%. So we're going to change it to a decimal, 0.05. And that ends up equaling sorry, 7%. PST is 7%. GST is 5%. Okay, 7%. $175. So that I do need to pay. I do want to put a circle around that. So far I pay how much I paid the guy for the car, how much I paid the mechanic, how much I paid MPI for taxes. Let's see, step 4. Step 4 is safety. Now we won't always have to pay this because maybe the person selling it has already done it. Okay, safety is $40. And on safety, you have to pay GST only. So not PST anymore, GST. So I'm going to multiply this by 1.07 because this time I do have to pay the 40 and, oh my gosh, 5. I don't know why I'm messing this up here. This is GST, so it's 5%. So I have to pay 5% GST and the $40. That equals $42 that I have to pay. That would be to another mechanic, or maybe the same mechanic as before. So $42 in total to get the safety done. Step 5, we're almost at the end here. A lien search. Again, you might not always do one, especially if it's off a friend or something. Maybe you feel like you can trust them, or maybe you don't. So lien search is $26, no tax, so just straight up $26. Step 6, let's find our total. Just gonna load down here. Total. Let's add it all up. Price of the car. Price of the fixes. Price of the PST. Someone outside is shouting, so that's nice. Price of the liens, the safety with tax. Price of the lien search. Total. $2,999.60. Put a dollar sign on there, give it an underline so we're sure that that's what it is, and we're done. So it's a lot of steps, which can get a little complicated. Great to have on a study sheet, and we won't always have every single part. All right, so try some practice and let's see how it goes, and have a good night.